Let's see. It finally happened. Bellular joins Asmongold to talk WoW versus Final Fantasy XIV.
We've wanted to get Bellular on Allcraft for so long. And it is finally here. The day is finally here that we have Bellular on Allcraft. It's been a long time, boys. About 4 years. And we have a lot to talk about.
Yeah, I waited so long, it's now a Final Fantasy stream.
Yeah.
Or maybe that was the Gigabrain plan all along.
Yeah, we originally wanted you to come on back whenever this was a WoW stream, back like years ago, It was a long time ago.
Yeah, it's a little bit crazy. Have you seen the Google Trends, by the way, of the Final Fantasy stuff versus World of Warcraft?
Oh yeah, Yoshida's he's been sneaking up.
Oh my God!
I think they've taken us, right?
We have been taken, and it's incredible to imagine that, honestly, because like WoW has been it's been the dominant MMO ever since 2000, ever since the day basically it came out. It's been the dominant MMO, and that's really only changed. And it's really kind of hard to say whether it's changed or not, because like the numbers are all very unknown. But there's a lot more enthusiasm for Final Fantasy. I think that everybody can agree with that.
Yeah, Blizz have lost the narrative. Like it's as simple as that. And it's so weird because like traditionally you do think of like the big Japanese companies and like their efforts in Western communications and PR, and typically speaking, they have not been as like hip to it or whatever.
Absolutely.
So it's so fucking funny seeing like the company that did GaaS, like games as a service first, like doing live services, managing to lose their own they've lost they've lost the home field, right? And it's so fucking sad. And, like, it's not to say that FF is perfect, and I'm not even in a position of authority to perfectly talk on the issue. It's just that thing when you fully look over it and you play it. When I say it feels like a more complete game, I think it's quantity of content they perhaps don't have as down as they would like. Like I'm pretty sure Yoshi P has talked about like kind of wishing there was a WoW-sized budget in his hands.
Yeah.
But the thing with WoW is like it just feels fragmentary. Like if you're a PvPer, I mean, God help you, right? Like the thing that I'm interested in when it comes to PvP, yeah, it's like I want some new BGs.
You hope that like every expansion you get one thing. It's like, please give me one thing this expansion. It's awful.
And I'm curious, Bell, if you feel like one of the reasons that happens is because Final Fantasy does such a good job at actually making the old content still feel very valuable and feel like it.
What was I talking about earlier today on the stream? The old content is still good. People need to not be rushing to Shadowbringers. Please don't do it. Like there's so much good stuff along the way that you're going to miss out. It's like, again, like, do whatever you want. It's your money. It's your enjoyment. But I just think there's so much enjoyment to be had in Realm Reborn, Heavensward, and Stormblood before you get to Shadowbringers.
It is legitimate content, not something that you're just kind of like looking through rose-tinted goggles, trying to make a new rule set to make it feel like it's actually a challenge.
Yeah, so what you're saying is that roulettes that involve scaling down should be a weekend-only event and barely useful to anybody that... It's that thing, like my first dungeon I was doing, I called out to the FC and bam, a whole bunch of people came in. It just made sense, right? So... Yeah, like time walking is a whole kettle of fish that absolutely it does my head in because there is so much potential. Like if they just did a mythic time walking, so that there was like a level of difficulty was there.
Yeah, they have to tune it differently.
Yeah, so they could fix up the tuning shit. Like I would hope so easily enough. And I mean, man, just think about the rewards. Like it's pretty damn obvious what they.
But here's the thing though. Why? From my point of view, as someone that enjoyed his Final Fantasy XIV experience, from my point of view, what they should be doing is not time walking. They should just make it so that the content works for all levels. Time walking is like scaling the content so that it works for a level during a certain time, as an event type thing. That's not what Final Fantasy XIV is doing. They're not doing time walking. It's like, no, the content is just relevant. If you want to do the content right, like, those raids that Asmongold was doing? Like level 80 players with maxed out gear and all that stuff can participate in that and still be challenged. Not to mention that the time walking balance that Blizzard has done is actually so bad that during some time walking weeks, people are just like, oh yeah, we can't do this dungeon because the scaling makes it so that this boss is impossible to kill or damn near impossible to kill. It's just like, it's not properly done.
You could do there, and then if you really wanted to go into that, you could build it around more content in the Caverns of Time, which would appeal like to a bunch of the historical players. I mean, come on, we all saw that at the back of the TBC box and kind of, you know, got a little gamer hard on, like, oh fucking hell, the Caverns of Time, that's the coolest shit ever.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just that thing. Like in FF, they have invested in like the systems and stuff to just to make that all work, such that just that ability to play with your friends is so much more there.
I think
it seems to be so much more open and flexible. And then in WoW, it's like their equivalent of, you know, you mentioned that, like their equivalent of that is just time walking weekend that gets you a bit of normal mode, like normal raid gear. I'm like, man, is that it? Why does it feel like Blizzard is cash strapped? What's going on?
That's one thing I always wonder about too. Yeah, it's like they've only got they've got a small budget. It's a multi-dollar company, and you know they don't have as much resources as everybody else, and so you know it takes them 9 months to do something that these other development studios can do very quickly, right? And I understand the scope of WoW is so big, but I think Blizzard's engineered these problems for themselves.
I don't know much about the FF14 engine. I know it has issues, and it's very much not perfect, but it seems like there is something going on with production issues at Blizzard. Like Covenant's basically an impossible design goal. Like they kept on saying with Covenants, like, oh, you know, if there's a specific issue with a Covenant or something like that, we'll balance it later. And it's like, no, you won't. We know you really won't.
It's like, you know, the
Remember that there were actually people, I don't know if you guys remember, but there were actually people at the start of Shadowlands that were like, Covenants are not as big of a problem as all of these streamers are making it out to be. Yes, they are. Yes, they are. They really are. They really were. I mean, they're not a problem anymore. You want to know why Covenants are not a problem anymore? Because almost nobody's playing the game anymore. I'm sorry. That was low. That was a cheap shot, but it was the fruit was just hanging so low. I just had to pick that one up. No, but seriously, like a lot of people go and they say, "Oh, I picked the Covenant that I wanted for lore reasons or whatever." Yeah, sure. Are you going to be doing Mythic Plus with that Covenant that you chose for lore reasons? Maybe if you were lucky. Not me. For lore reasons, I wanted to choose the Necrolords because I thought they were the coolest Covenant with the coolest area. I wanted the Necrolords for my Paladin. Guess what? You want to do Mythic Plus? You better not be a Necrolord. You better be a Bastion Paladin if you want to do Mythic Plus and be good at it. You want to do good raids? You better be Bastion or Rivendreth. You better not be a Necrolord. Some people were thinking like, oh, it's a 2% difference. Who cares? No, in my case, it was like a 40% difference. Thank you very much.
The engineers at Twitter, and it's like every 6 months we got to have to deal with a new layout of Twitter. Yeah. It's like they have to have a reason for Twitter to continue to have them employed. And so they just create a new problem every 6 months for them to solve. And it feels kind of that way with WoW, where it's like, okay, it's a new tier. Well, the systems designers need a reason for Blizzard not to fire them. So we have this new chains of domination system or shards of domination system that most people don't understand how it works. It seems completely unnecessary, but here it is anyway. And that's kind of the way that it feels like. It feels like they're adding these things into the game for really no reason. And I think that whenever they've moved to simplicity, I think one of the positive things about Shadowlands is the fact that they made gearing and PvP much more simple. And oftentimes, I think Blizzard's efforts towards simplicity's sake and not having the unnecessary complexities has actually been met with a lot of positivity.
It's hard to speculate as to like why it goes down like this. A bit of me, though, does think that you got a problem, right? And you throw a systems designer at it. It's like, you know, a hammer is going to see a nail.
Yes.
That it's just the way that, you know, they'll operate. Really, and I think it's likely some sort of institutional thing. Like I genuinely don't think they go, okay, we won't give them tier sets. We'll give them shards of domination and we'll deposit them slowly and slowly and slowly and give you little bits of gear here and there just to string the players along. Like, I don't think that's why they do it.
You know what I think?
I do. I really do. Like, I'm sorry. I think Bellular here is being maybe a little overly optimistic. You might be on a little bit of copium there. Like, I really do think that, you know, a big portion of WoW's design is, you know, there's an intent behind it, which is about stringing players along. I mean, just look at how everything has worked so far with the renown system. It's basically to string players along. We're not going to give you the whole story. We're going to string you along, give you a little bit of story every week. You know, we're going to string you along, give you a little bit of gear every week through the vault system, through this system. It's going to be random. Why does it have to be random? Well, we can't just very well give you the gear that you want. We can't even let you work to get the gear that you want. You have to be lucky. And that's the thing that bothers me. Like, you know, that's one of the things that 14 does way better is that you can actually work towards the gear that you want instead of like, oh no, I need to get lucky. There's still luck involved, but like, for instance, in normal raids, not savage raids, savage is a whole different thing, but in normal raids, you can do the raids as often as you want until you get the tier token that you want. Like you can go, like say for instance, okay, this boss drops the chest token that I need. You go into the raid, need on the chest token. You didn't get it, somebody else got it. Okay, don't need on anything else, get out of the raid, queue back in, need on the chest token again until you get it. You can do it. You can actually work towards the thing that you want. And that is what is missing from WoW. You can work, but not towards anything you actually want.
I think that it actually is them genuinely trying.
I don't want to dive too deep into it, but we could talk about all the conspiracy theories that have been floating around on the internet over the past couple of weeks about what's really going on behind the scenes. Like the only thing that I'm sure about from those conspiracy theories with like Blizzard leaks and what Blizzard employees think, the only thing that I'm actually sure about is the fact that Asmongold is an asshole. That's the only one I'm sure about. Everything else, you know, it could all be bullshit. We have to take it with a grain of salt. But what do we think is going on that's causing these feelings of polish to not really be there anymore?
I think that it's just this simple. I think they don't know how to make a game that feels rewarding. It is literally that simple. Because how many times have they gone up? I think Ian has gone up and tried to explain to us why we should be having fun. That should never happen. It's like they're explaining like, oh, well, it's not that big of a deal because it'll work out in averages. Like they're using statistics to justify the way that people feel or to invalidate the way that people feel. And that's just not the way you design a game.
I have to wonder if that's because they're like quite production friendly. And like there's definitely going to be plenty of, you know, unknown unknowns as you're like doing encounters, but they have that shit down. For the lack of polish, I think it's because, well, what happens when you make something that's hard to polish? It's going to be harder to polish. Like, it's one of like, maybe it feels like a little bit close to the bone for me. Like we burnt through too much money on basically an overly ambitious systems-driven game that required a bunch of systems to be right for the overall loop to make sense. We did a whole bunch of shit ass backwards, and it was that thing. The design that we went for was fundamentally way harder to get right than the other thing that we're doing now. And I think when you look at World of Warcraft, you see a whole bunch of that.
And there's just so many cases where it seems like testing and planning for the game has just like really not happened. And whenever that happens so often, and then you have like these massive overreactions where they take something like Echoing Void or whatever it was, and they just nerf it by half and they make it completely garbage. Those kinds of things I think are really frustrating for players because people are trying to figure these things out. And then they spend tons of gold on them, and then they get changed completely because Blizzard decided not to test them properly beforehand. And anybody could have seen these things happening because they became evident on the first day of the patch. And I think these same things happen with Covenants too.
Sooner, a lot of the times, these things become evident in the PTR, and the community actually reports it, and they tell Blizzard, hey, shit's broken, yo. It's not working. Listen, I don't know what to tell you. Broken. and then it gets into the game and it's still broken, and then millions of people have to make their voices heard. Blizzard, shit's broken, yo. And then Blizzard's like, oh, we might actually need to fix this.
Whenever you see Blizzard talking about, oh, well, players are going to pick the one that they want to play with, based off of like lore or whatever. And the reality is the breakdowns are, it's like 90% of people, or 95% of people don't pick one covenant. Like there's one covenant that like only 5 or 3% of people pick for some classes and specs. That's crazy.
Yeah, but people came back in the past, right? Shadowlands, best-selling PC game of all time.
Exactly.
For a few days until whatever that other game was. But
Cyberpunk.
I think it is a sort of thing where it's the incumbent has got their advantage, but also the blindness that comes with that. And I think that they've been more okay. Maybe it's just that their tolerance for what is shippable has maybe decreased a bit. But I think this is the big but. Their tolerance for that has decreased, but also their focus on gameplay-oriented content, where those things have got to be right early, has increased. So, if we think about, like, let's just say how I played the game in Mists of Pandaria, or maybe in Wrath of the Lich King, or something like that. If something was busted as fuck, like, it didn't really matter to me, because there was a bunch of other stuff to do. It was, like, early enough on in the game's life that, getting a mount was still an exciting thing. And, a goal to work towards. So as that stuff has melted away and the 3 pillars of Mythic Plus, Raid, and PvP have taken over, well, if more of your game's relying on those pillars, and those pillars require that level of polish and balance, and then you start to make a game that is fundamentally harder to polish and balance because you've created multiplicative complexity, then yeah, you've just kind of built your own prison. And
all for the sake of what? All for the sake of what? Oh, we're going to put these covenants and we're going to put these special abilities on it. And we're going to put this thing and that thing. And it's going to work together with this other system back in the maw. And then from the maw, it's going to work with this other system that is in the Torghast thing, which is going to work with this other system that is connected to crafting, which is going to work with this other system for your legendaries. And now on top of that, we're going to be adding the shards of domination and the gear that comes with the slots for the shards of domination. And make sure to always grind your anima and your conduits and your the bed you get. And at a certain point, like, just imagine trying to explain World of Warcraft systems to someone that has never played an MMO. Actually, no, just to someone that has never played World of Warcraft. Like, imagine someone that has never played World of Warcraft, and you're just like, okay, dude, so listen, you got to make sure that you get your anima up, because you're going to need that in order to unlock your renown, because that's what's going to unlock your Covenant quest line. And then with your Covenant, always remember that you need to put the 2 new abilities in your bars, which are Covenant specific. And if you decide to change Covenants, then that ability is going to change based on the other Covenant that you have. And make sure to go to the Maw and do your dailies on the Maw. And then make sure to go to Torghast and get the Soul Ash that you need, because you're going to need that Soul Ash to then go to the auction house to buy the base item for your legendary, so that you can then use the Soul Ash, the base item, and fuse that together on a special legendary. Make sure that you choose the right one, though, because different abilities are going to come for different legendaries, right? So you might need the helmet for a certain ability, you might need the shoulders for a different ability. You got to make sure that you get the right legendary, because that is going to determine how good you actually are at the specific class that you're at. Also, in case you're wondering where does the special power from the legendary comes from, well, it might come from several different places. Maybe yours comes from Mythic Plus, maybe his comes from the raid, maybe yours comes from just randomly a world boss somewhere, maybe it comes from someplace else. It's like, these are just the very basics for your legendary power. But then after that, don't forget, there's also the conduit system. So the conduits also come from random places. They can come from the Mythic Plus system, or they can come from the raid, or they can come from world quests. And you're like, oh, but what are conduits for again? Oh, come on, dude, keep up. Dude, conduits are, of course, things that are going to change the way that your base skills work, and it's going to be very important because using the right conduit at the right time is going to be super important. However, that conduit might change because Blizzard is constantly shifting and flowing with balance. So if you invest too much into a specific conduit, then you might get screwed over later. So be careful about that. Try to keep it up. And it's like, oh, in case you're wondering how you actually grind the upgrades for your conduit, because your conduit also has item levels, well, that's a little bit more complicated because they're going to give you random conduits and you can get one that is the weakest. You might not get the one that you actually have. There's also a vendor that they're going to put into the game where they're going to sell you random conduits from time. It's like, dude, come on, dude. All of these systems for what? Like, let's be real here. You think I give a fuck about conduits, legendaries, the fucking whatever the currency was that I was grinding in the maw so that I could put sockets into my gear? Like, you think I give a fuck about any of these systems? I care about getting into the game, going into a dungeon, and getting some loot. You can grab your conduits. Hell, you can even take away the legendaries. I don't even mind only getting epics at this point. I'd be happier only getting epics. How can you make the act of getting loot so bad? How do you do this? It's like, how is it that people would pick up a piece of loot from a dungeon and be like, this is shit, this sucks? Why? Because it's not the right conduit, or it's not the right thing that I actually need for... How? It sounds terrible because it is. And here's the thing, like I said, if you think about this as a new player perspective, because I know that people in the comment section, people that play Shadowlands, they like to go in there and they like to say, come on, Rurikhan, it's not that complicated. It's like, I know it's not that complicated. I can understand it just fine. I played Shadowlands. I know exactly how it works. The fun part is like, you know what you need for an MMO to thrive and succeed? You need new blood. You need more people to come in and play the game. Now try explaining these fucking systems on top of systems on top of systems to a new player. And that's the thing that I kind of feel like a lot of times, a lot of companies lose track of this. Like, you guys remember Paragon? Because I was involved in the actual development of Paragon, if you guys remember, because I was invited to go out there and play the game and give feedback and all of that stuff. And we had meetings that we would have with content creators about Paragon, where we would be able to give our feedback on how the game was doing. I remember this very specifically because I really enjoyed that experience. And one of the things that I would always bring up about Paragon is like, hey guys, can we improve the matchmaking system? Because new players are constantly getting matched against pros and they're getting fucking trounced. And they're just like, yeah, that's not high on our priority list. We need to fix these this power system. We need to balance that thing. We need to balance this, need to balance that. I was like, okay. And every single meeting that we would have, the only thing that I would bring up every single meeting was like, hey guys, can you fix the matchmaking system? Can you fix the matchmaking system? And they never did. And because they never made matchmaking play, because like even me, I knew how the game worked, and I had literally 2 types of matches every time I queued. 2 types of matches. One, I would get queued against like absolute pros that were better than me and they would trounce me. 2, I would get queued against complete noobs and I would trounce them. I've had maybe throughout the entire amount of matches that I did throughout the whole time that I played Paragon, I've had maybe 10 matches that were evenly matched. And that was the thing that I would always bring up. And why would I bring up matchmaking in Paragon? Which Paragon, for those who don't know, is like a third-person MOBA that I used to cover. That game is dead now. The reason I would bring up matchmaking is because that is what was important for the new player experience. Because every time that I would try to bring in a new player to the game, they would get fucking destroyed. They would get queued into people that had been playing the game for ages, and they would get destroyed, and they would never want to play the game again. And that was the problem. And it's like, until you fix that fundamental problem, you might as well not fix anything else. And this is one of the problems that I feel World of Warcraft has right now. Who the fuck is going to come into Shadowlands and understand 1/10 of the systems that Shadowlands has? Nobody. Very few people are going to be new blood and jump into World of Warcraft because it's systems on top of systems on top of systems. And all that for what? What is the core essence that is fun in World of Warcraft? It's either jumping into a battleground or an arena and beating the shit out of somebody else, and that's fun, or jumping into a dungeon and getting some loot, and that's fun. That's what we as players care about, okay? The story and stuff, it's cool and all, you know, it's good dressing, it's fine. The questing experience, sure, whatever. Give me some loot while I'm questing, fine. But the core experience of World of Warcraft for me is jumping into a dungeon and getting loot. And they fucked that up so bad with these retention metrics of putting a fucking vault at the end of each week, and that is where you get your gear from, because we got to carefully dole out the gear. You don't want to make sure that players don't get too powerful too fast. It's like, what the fuck? Is this a game or is this a goddamn job? Like, why is just jumping into a dungeon and getting loot such a complex thing to do that you need to put covenants and fucking conduits and anima and the legendary and the soul ash and the this and the that and the make fun things and players will play.
I have a worry that they have an institutional focus on those kind of game systems, perhaps learning the wrong lessons from Legion or something like that, to the point where they can't see the forest for the trees.
And I will say it, I think that a lot of them don't fucking play the game. And I think that even if they do play the game, it is in a way that is so removed from what the average population does that they have no idea what the average population's pain points even are. Like, I'll give you an example, okay? And Bellular, I know that you probably do not subject yourself to the same level of degeneracy of transmog farming that I do. But let me explain to you the way that Shadowlands rares drop transmog items. So the way that these Shadowlands rares drop transmog items is that those transmog items are only available on the loot table if you are killing that rare on the class that could obtain that item naturally and have it be an upgrade for that character that they are playing on. Knowing full well that players play the game for transmog, people love transmog, and what do you have to do? You have to go over, and if I want to get all of the different scythes from Ardenweald, I have to go over on a special caster character and kill them on that caster character, and this is the exact same fucking system that it was, I believe, in the 8.3 rares as well. So if I wanted to go and farm out the dagger from the Oldham rares, I would have to go and do it on either a rogue or a caster that could equip daggers. And this is insane. Like, why is this even happening? Some of these things that you have to do, some of the goals.
It's because Blizzard doesn't. Do you guys think that Blizzard just doesn't know that there's actually people that do what Asmongold does? There's actually collectors in this game that want to collect everything they can, whether that is mounts or, you know, certain pieces of gear. And they expect people to basically level up their alts to pick up all of this stuff. No, dude, there's no way. They just don't know what people are even doing in their game. They don't follow their community. They have zero community presence at all. They're not aware of what their community is doing. And it's like, it's good God. Jumping Jaggies.
Goals that Blizzard has for players to work towards in the game are just so monumentally ridiculous that it's just not even fun to progress in them, because even whenever you complete it, you feel like an idiot because you know you just wasted 100 hours.
Yep.
Yeah, it's because it's not content. Like, I would contend that that's not content. You know, it's like, I think about Korthia, you know, some of the stuff people do with rares, and in my head, Korthia is like a bunch of seasoning but no meat. In that,
so Korthia is not good.
Should be a lot, you know, a lot more there. You know, if you want to get that stuff from content, I mean, you could develop a wrap around it. You could develop some sort of, you know, various things they've done in the past. You know, of course, they could do new things as well. There is one thing that interested me, though, Do you feel that for mounts?
In what way?
Well, I mean, they've kept on rewarding you with mounts for so many years now. Are you still excited about getting new mounts?
I mean, like, it depends on the mount. But like overall, no, not as much as I used to be, right? I mean, like getting your first like 50 or 100 mounts is way a bigger deal than getting your 500th mount. And this is a problem. Like I genuinely think it's a problem with the game in general, because in WoW's reward structure, there's just so much bloat. Like whenever you only had Ashes of Alar was fucking awesome. But now whenever you have Invincible, the Pureblood Firehawk, and 8 different storm mounts that look better, and then there's also the purple version from the Cataclysm Guild vendor, and there's 15 other versions of the mount too that look way cooler, your Ashes of Alar is comparatively not as special because you're not as unique anymore. And I would have loved to see Blizzard with BFA, this is like my dream, was that if BFA had done some sort of like ship expansion where you could actually go out on an island expedition, and you could augment your ship. You could change your ship. Or what if they had a mount? You know, like in The Witcher, whenever you could ride around with like the Griffin head or something like that. What if that was a Nixia's head? And you could like have these like base mounts, like a base horse or a base wolf. And you could augment these mounts based off of different achievements or accomplishments you have. Like that would be so cool. And they don't really innovate or change the rewards. They just add more and more and more of them, because you're right. There is a diminishing return because everybody already has their favorite mount. Everybody already has their favorite pet, their favorite title, etc. And there's so...
I never got Ashes of Alar. I never got it. But I got Rathalos in Final Fantasy XIV, baby. Let's go. I farmed that bitch, dude. And it was hella good. And it was a really good fight, too. It was actually a lot of fun farming Rathalos.
So many in the game that the ones that exist are very few and far between that are special, because many people don't even know what they are.
I agree 100% with everything that you said, but I think another thing that's missing beyond the saturation, which is really evident for me after playing Final Fantasy, there isn't a good way to display your rewards anymore either. The saturation is still a problem, right? Even if there was a way to display it, saturation would still be a problem. But with the way that World of Warcraft feels right now, there aren't as many shared spaces where, you know, you're not looking at the same mailboxes where you see somebody on the Ashes of Alar like you used to.
I think an example of this is the solo queue. With solo queue, I think that's like a symptom and not really the disease. I think the reason why people need solo queue and the reason why people want solo queue is because there is no shared space for PvPers to interact with each other. You guys remember back in Mists of Pandaria when everybody would be sitting on the wall, people would be dueling, and they would duel each other, and then you duel a priest and he'd mind control you off the edge or some bullshit. And that's just where PvPers would congregate. And I think it's the same thing with a lot of the other zones in previous expansions, like Ironforge back in like Vanilla WoW and outside of Stormwind in like Cataclysm. And you always had this place that PvPers would go to and see each other and interact with each other. And that was their queuing system. And now you don't have that shared space anymore because of sharding. Like I went over to Stormwind and there's like 5 people in the city. How does that happen in an MMO?
I've said it quite a few times. Like I actually, you know, no fault to World of Warcraft for having an old engine, right? The game has an old engine. That's the reality of the situation. It is a 17-year-old game or whatever it is now. But the thing is, when people say we want a World of Warcraft 2, we want an update to it, we want a World of Warcraft 2, I have always said, we don't want a World of Warcraft 2. It's going to be made by the same developers. It's going to be even worse. These devs making a World of Warcraft 2 would be terrible. What's the point of a new engine?
Oh, yeah.
It's just, you're going to make the same shit systems in HD.
Well, they changed it. They changed the engine in Final Fantasy XIV from the original game into A Realm Reborn. Mm-hmm. And that's actually a really good point. And also, like Bellular, I remember you said this in one of your videos. You said that WoW basically has been a WoW 2. And you said that like WoW
3.
1. Yeah, WoW 3, right? Count. And it was like, yeah, like vanilla WoW to Wrath was like WoW 1, Cataclysm to Warlords of Draenor was WoW 2, and Legion to now was WoW 3. And I think that's true, right? Because each of those expansions was a huge breakpoint in quality and a huge breakpoint in fidelity and just like everything in the game. It was massive. And I do think that's true, but at a certain point, I do think that WoW is to a degree held back by its engine. It must be, because why is it Why do we have so much?
But it's like, sure, it's held back by its engine in terms of graphical fidelity and all of that stuff. But I mean, is that really? I don't think that's World of Warcraft's problem right now. When I want to play WoW, the last thing that demotivates me is like, oh, the game doesn't look good. I actually think World of Warcraft looks great. I think World of Warcraft looks fantastic as far as I'm concerned. In terms of art direction, I like it. I think it looks good. I don't really have a problem with the way the game looks. I have a problem with the way that the game plays with the systems that they implement on it. The amount of chores they expect me to do, that's my biggest problem with it.
Lag in games where you have equivalent things happening and there isn't that lag? Why is it that the Ashes of Creation technical demo can run more people performing actions than a massively multi-billion-dollar company after 20 years? It's crazy.
But again, that comes back to like production issues, right? Yeah. I mean, they clearly, like, you know that meme, small indie company?
Multi-dollar company.
Yeah, multi-dollar company. Why the fuck are we saying that? Their quarterly takings was like, what, 400 and something million? That's a lot of cash.
Sorry, bro. Can only do 4 recalls, man. We can only do 4 recalls the same amount, man. we can't hire new people. What do you mean?
They fired a lot of really good people too.
They sure did.
I mean,
that's what's weird there. They're from what I understand, like morale is basically in a very bad spot in the WoW team, and they've had like, you know, challenges or whatever. There's a bunch of people leaving. That said, if we're to listen to our favorite guy in the universe, Bobby Kotick, which, by the way, we've looked into we did this for like another video we haven't done yet, but we looked into his backstory. It's actually fucking fascinating. Dude has been hustling so damn well for so long. It's very cool. But anyway,
I've met Mr. Kotick. Maybe twice.
He's probably a nice guy, isn't he?
He's the fucking man. I'm gonna be honest. I will say, when I met him, I was like, wow, like I'm actually inspired, which doesn't happen very often. When he came in to actually back at the MLG days, when we got acquired by Activision, he was a very, you know, as a boss or whoever he wasn't obviously the person I was directly answering to, but he did a good job at getting everybody really excited. And back then, Activision Blizzard was on like the Forbes top 100 companies to work for. You don't usually get to stay on the list when you fire like 25% of your employees or whatever the heck it was. So I don't think they're on the list anymore. But it was one of those things where, you know, you can tell that he's very intelligent and he knows how to make money. The problem is Blizzard and a lot of the gamers that were playing the games come from a completely different style of production, which was Mike Morhaim's vision and the vision of a lot of the original employees of WoW, where it truly was gameplay first. Gameplay first for a AAA studio, and this is why I don't think AAA studios are going to be the way of the land forever. I don't think that you need a AAA studio anymore because distribution has changed so much. But when you look at AAA studios, the best way to make money is not to put gameplay first. It's to do what WoW is doing right now. And that's why I can't see WoW coming back. Because one of the questions I wanted to ask you over the past 5 years, Bellular, is what would you do to change WoW? And I know no matter what you say, it will not make as much money as pumping out an expansion with new features that aren't tested, because that gets box sales. You see a new thing and you go, wait, this might be good. Let me try it. They put the new shiny toys on there on the box to get people to buy it. Who cares if they suck? You already spent the money on the box. And
dude, this is so true. This is so true. This is exactly what I did. Fuck. Although they didn't get me with BFA, because I got that code from Blizzard. Fuck that. I was like, hey, I want to play BFA, and they gave me a code. Shadowlands, I was like, I don't even want to be associated with you guys right now. I'm just going to buy it. I think I should have gotten a code for that, too. That would have been the smart thing to do. I should have just gotten another code, too. But yeah, dude, they fucking got me. They're just like, hey, man, covenants. We're going to go to the realm of death. No, in all honesty, I don't think that's what got me in. I'm sure that gets a lot of people back. What got me back to Shadowlands was the potential excitement of playing with a friend. Like that was it. That's what kind of like got me back into Shadowlands. The same person that I raided with back in TBC and Wrath of the Lich King. And, you know, the new expansion is always, you know, new beginning. Let's go do this. It's going to be great. And yeah, I messaged my friend. He's like, yeah, sure. Let's go. Let's go do it. And that's what got me in. It wasn't the features. So I don't know. This is probably true for a lot of people, but it definitely wasn't true for me. Now that I think about it, no, this was not it at all.
Then you want this fucking mount? You're trapped for 6 months. Ha 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 ha. They laugh their money to the bank. They're probably making more money than they've ever made before. Why the fuck would they want to change? Why would they want to change? Yep. It's like, even if you are making the worst content ever, even if it's morally not right, you move to a different country to make the same thing if you're getting the bag. Anybody would do that. I don't care if you're an individual. I don't care if you are a AAA studio. They are making more money making a game like this, and you almost can't blame a company, right? But they're not our friends. They're not our friends. We shouldn't be Blizzard gamers anymore. They are a company, and they are doing what they can to grab the bag, and that's it.
So what's happened, right, is feedback loops. Now, you know, like the engineering concept of the feedback loop. Real fucking important. Thing is, WoW never really had, I think, much of a feedback loop, because even if they messed up, all the people would come back. They were an incumbent. They were dominant in the market. They had, I think, a very well moated player base. Moated basically, being like that, kind of the defenses around the player base. And it's one of the reasons why FF won't completely kill WoW, because a lot of people want the WoW style of fantasy. So they were this incumbent for the longest time, to the point where they basically never felt the sting of their losses. And that basically means that there was less of an incentive to, I think anyway, less an incentive to deeply engage with, with issues. And I think this is something that has happened more and more and more as time has went on. Because I think it's one of those things, right? If you try to objectively say, Wrath of the Lich King versus, a new expansion, it's a bit of a pointless statement, because they're all products of their time. And what matters is how good they were in comparison to everything else. So it's that thing where right now, in the past, they were doing their thing the best. Right now, they have made the game smaller and smaller and smaller. I think it's, you could say, maybe more focused, but it is that very gameplay oriented sort of top end progression content. There's not as much room for the transmoggers, the RPers, the collectors, things like that. And there's not a lot of new, what would you say, massive engineering projects going into giving you guys cool new features you really care about. Like, let's just say they're like, hey there, Asmongold, tintable armor, you get to unlock the dice, and you get a whole bunch, like a whole new system. But not, it's not some big new content thing. Mm-hmm. It's just something that fundamentally stands to WoW forever. So basically our issue is games got more focused over time. Other things in the market have been bubbling up and bubbling up and bubbling up. And I think with WoW, it just finally got to the stage where they had accumulated enough thematic losses. And I think saying thematic is super important, because, humans, we recognize patterns, and, we feel themes emotionally, right? And when the theme, the underlying theme of the WoW team's mistakes has been kind of consistent in spite of player feedback, then people start to look elsewhere. And I think your big difference is that Final Fantasy XIV has finally reached a stage where, off the back of Shadowbringers, it's just fucking incredible. And we're finally at that stage where World of Warcraft, I think, is going to have a viable feedback loop, because there is viable competition. Like, and PvP MMOs were... That. Yeah, like a PvP MMO Crowfall was never going to take out World of Warcraft, right? I don't even think Ashes of Creation would be taking out World of Warcraft for what modern WoW is. But what FF14 is big theme park MMO. It's a different flavor of the game WoW's playing, but it is the same game, and it's really fucking good. So finally we have the feedback loop. So I think that just means that whatever, pressure, Blizzard are actually going to feel it. I think we're finally at the stage where they're going to feel their losses. I mean, we've been doing preliminary.
But I mean, if we're to believe the leak that we looked at earlier in the stream, considering that the new people, they want to sink more time into, the stuff that the cash shop and whatnot, and they don't really care. Even if they start feeling their losses, like, how are they going to fix it? They're going to start designing like more systems. They're going to try to just come up with more and more systems. And it's just not something that is going to be fixed with systems. Prime Orb 666, thank you very much for being Real Simcast for 25 months. Tip of the hat. Appreciate the support. Thank you. This is not a problem that you can fix with systems.
Preliminary work looking into basically just a bunch of participation metrics. And like one of the things I saw was Mythic Plus, and I'm fairly sure that the first week of Season 2 saw less Mythic Plus participation than Season 4 of BFA, which is like late into an expansion. That's fucking spooky, dude.
That's very bad.
That shouldn't be happening.
I mean, I do want to say too, and this is coming from somebody who probably loves Final Fantasy right now more than most, right? I love the game. It has the biggest advantage ever right now. Like, imagine if the tables were turned and Final Fantasy was king right now, or had been king for a really long time, and we were going back to World of Warcraft, and you had all of Classic, all of TBC, all of Wrath, and all of these things to play through. Final Fantasy, for a lot of people, it's the first time they're looking at it, and they have so much content to go through.
Bro, the content from 7 years ago is more relevant than WoW's content from 7 months ago.
Yeah.
There it is. What have I been arguing? Dude, I love that sentence. That sentence is so good. Listen, every time somebody talks about boosting in Final Fantasy XIV, I'll just play them this.
See, for a lot of people, it's the first time they're looking at it, and they have so much content to go through.
Bro,
there it is.
Content from 7 years ago is more relevant than WoW's content from 7 months ago.
That's whenever somebody asks, should I boost in Final Fantasy XIV? That's all you got to show them. Somebody make a clip of that.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Imagine how fun
that would be. The case?
Imagine how fun it would be if you did a time walking dungeon, and if time walking was relevant, and you actually got to play the old rotations, and like you got to play like old Demonology Warlock, or you got to play like old things like that.
Or how about this? How about you just get to play?
That's not what they do in Final Fantasy XIV though. The classes have evolved, and they have changed over time. That is my understanding of it, anyways. I can assure you that the paladin that I'm playing now, if I go back and I do, minimum item level Calls of Bahamut, that was not the paladin that people were playing in Realm Reborn, because the classes have changed. It's not that simple. At least I'm assuming that he's not doing a direct comparison to 14. He's just like, wouldn't it be cool if you could do the old stuff?
A boss that isn't a fucking joke. Like, the bosses are just jokes, man, and they don't really even try to do anything like that, and it's sad.
There's like a simple thing: an expansion shouldn't be subtractive, and like in Final Fantasy XIV, an expansion is not subtractive. And like, imagine if we could just go into a rock hard version of, I don't know, Shadow Moon Burial Grounds. That'd be sweet. That would be sweet. Like what we said about Torghast earlier on. So, I mean, I don't know exactly how they do it, but I mean, come on, the Caverns of Time exist. You have the narrative framing to make it happen.
Well, they just say like, listen, they're like, hey, look, it's like with the primals in Final Fantasy, like, so they're back again. And what's so crazy about them this time is that they're more powerful. We don't even know why it happened, but you've got to go deal with it. And it's like, okay, all right, that sounds good.
There you go.
And it's even like the lore. I wanted to talk about this because Bellular, you've made a lot of lore videos, man. Like, what do you think about the new cinematic, and like, where do you think this is gonna go?
Okay, right. Wow. There's so
that
many ways to
beautiful cinematic.
So, I mean, as they've been saying, he's got the 5 sigils, bros. What are we gonna do? The sigil.
It's funny. I've had comments also on this because I put my reaction to the cinematic, the Bellular thing, and people are like, "You just don't understand how World of Warcraft story works, man. You just don't understand how it works because you're dumb." And it's like, okay, I guess that about 90% of the people that downvoted that video also don't understand how the story works. Is that an us problem? Is that a player problem that we don't understand how the story works? Is that what's going on? It's like it's so because I'm pretty sure that most of the people that play through the story of Final Fantasy XIV, they can get it just fine. It's not that hard to understand what's going on in the game. Like, yeah, there's some nuanced stuff that maybe you don't get, but like the general plot, you can get it just fine. The reason it doesn't work in WoW is because they expect you to read the books. It's like, got to read the books. It's like, I'm playing the video game. Put the story in the video game. Just put the story in the video game, and then the books can be an extra. Like, you can tell me all about Uther's adventures when he was young in the books. In the game, you tell me what is Uther doing now. You know? It's like you tell me all about Sylvanas' adventures when she was a ranger in the books. And then in the game, you tell me what she's doing now. Like maybe in the game, tell me the thing about how she lost half of her soul or whatever. I was never aware of that. I didn't fucking know that she didn't have half of her soul. Apparently, that's the thing. She lost half her soul. So now, and then he gives her back to her. And now she's not guilty of anything she's done because she's a full person again. What a fucking cop-out.
Can you believe it, boys? He's got the sigils. You know, the sigils that you guys care about and are so, deep and meaningful. It's like, no, none of that shit's been established. So they have these really weird things. And this has really happened since BFA. Since they kind of... And, it's weird. I don't think it's literally this, but I do feel like I'm part of the problem on why the storytelling... Because it's that sort of thing where the lore is cool, but it's how it's told that matters, right, to players emotionally. It just feels like they make shit so that I can do reaction videos. So I can be like, okay, so, right, you're all confused, but this is why that happened. This is when that thing was foreshadowed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. That's the really weird thing. I think the storytelling is very strange. I wonder what flip-flops they've had internally and things. But like regarding Sylvanas, if they do give her a redemption arc that is based on her getting a complete soul again, that is a really weird way to do it because, sure, Zovaal giving her soul back means that she can, be a complete person and reflect on all the shitty things she's done, and she will suffer because of that. But I feel like that's a bit of a cop-out getting us a complete Sylvanas. I think it would be way more interesting if Zovaal was like, oh yeah, you betrayed me. Here's your soul. I was going to give it back to you, but fuck you. It's destroyed. Now Sylvanas has realized that the reason why she's been, a little bit moody for the last 20 years or whatever, or what.
Dude, just improving off the bat Bellular made a better story than the entire WoW writing team. Like, this feels like he just improv this, like, off the bat out of Asmongold's question, and he wrote a better story. Makes more sense. Like, think about it. This makes more sense to me. Him crushing the soul and not giving it to her makes more sense. It makes more sense than what we're getting. Like, does anybody disagree that makes more sense and it sounds better? Oh my God.
However many years, is because, now she realizes what's happened to her soul. And maybe her new arc is that she actually has to work for what she's going to get and earn it. So there's like little storytelling things there. I mean...
No. Working and earning something? No. Here's what you would have to do, Bellular. She would have to go run dungeons for the next couple of months, and then eventually she could get her soul on the vault if she was lucky enough. However, she needs to get it at the right item level, okay? So she needs to make sure that she does, what's it now? Is it like 15 Mythic plus 10s per week? She needs to make sure she does that. She also needs to make sure that she does 10 raid bosses, and she also needs to go do PvP, and then eventually, at the end of the week, she's going to have like 9 chances of getting her soul back at a good item level. And if she doesn't get at a good item level, at least she gets her soul back a little bit. And then, she goes on to do it for a couple of more weeks until she gets her soul at the appropriate item level. And then she can be happy again. Not working, earning. No. We don't do that here. Okay. We have you work, and then there's a chance of you getting the things that you want. A very rare chance that you might get the things that you want. That's how it works. That's how she's going to get a redemption. And you see, that right there would actually make World of Warcraft players really relate to Sylvanas, dude. If Sylvanas would have to go through the shit we go through to get our loot in order to get her soul back, that would make Sylvanas one hell of a relatable character. Holy shit.
Storytelling, right? Like books. Why is it that we're waiting for World of Warcraft Sylvanas, the novel that will come out in February 2022, to get the full picture, right? Like, no, you tell the story in game. Like FF14 does have its version of this.
The only time I ever enjoyed,
it doesn't matter in FF.
The only time I ever enjoyed the World of Warcraft lore was watching Noble's channel. I watched a lot of Noble's channel, and that made me love
there you go.
And then the only other time I read Chronicle. Imagine me reading a book. I read Chronicle. I read the first one of Chronicle, and it was really fucking good. Never did I really feel the story the same way that I could with like, Final Fantasy, for example. And you look at a lot of the characters and the depth that they actually have. I mean, I'm not going to say anything like too crazy because I know you guys are behind me in the story. But when I look at you look at like Garrosh, and Ruban, after being on stream for like 1 minute, is just cooler than Garrosh.
I think Garrosh is an exception. I think Garrosh is fucking awesome.
He's a bitch.
I think this is one cinematic Garrosh. I think the one cinematic.
Garrosh is a bitch. He's an orc. What do you expect? All orcs are. Let's be real here. Come on. Is there any good orcs? Oh, please tell me all about how good Thrall is. Little bitch boy ran away with his tail between his legs. He's like, I'm gonna go live a peaceful life. It's like, but you're the one who balances the elements, and I'm gonna go live a peaceful life. Goodbye now. Garrosh is a bitch, dude. He gets what he deserves. Didn't we kill Garrosh in Warlords of Draenor or something like that? We didn't. We should have. Fuck him.
Garrosh got at the end was absolutely fucking perfect. They finally let him out, and he said, fuck you, fuck the jailer, fuck everybody, I'm gonna blow myself up. And that was it. Like Garrosh.
Wait. Is this a new? I haven't seen this. Let me see. What the hell is this? Garroth Shadowlands 9.1. What's this? Garrosh Hellscream raid cutscene. Oh.
They said I must answer for my crimes, repent for my sins. But every choice I made, I would proudly make again. You will submit. I submit to no one! Not you! Not the jailer! And not that coward Thrall! For the Horde!
Did he just become a pile of ashes? That was actually better than I expected. That was real good. Hey, dude, that was actually really good. He just became a pile of ashes. Good. Dumbass orc. He did, he did a Teldrassil cosplay at the end. Oh, let's go and show a Teldrassil cosplay. Oh, that was good. Yeah.
Went out like a pimp. And honestly, like
Went out like a bitch.
9.1 is an improvement over Shadowlands. As I said, I think that the Torghast stuff is good, but they've just got so far to go. And like, I am so exhausted about restarting the beta process for every expansion. So Shadowlands, at the end of Shadowlands, it's going to happen. If they can actually take what they learned in Shadowlands and take the systems that they developed and make them better in the next expansion, I'm gonna have a lot more. I'm gonna have a lot more confidence for the game, because I'm not gonna quit WoW. Like, there's no way I'm gonna quit WoW. But that doesn't mean that I'm not gonna
give it time, Asmongold. Give it time.
I play it. Or it doesn't also mean that I might play it a little bit less whenever there's other games that I can play instead.
That's going to be it. Like,
yeah,
when the only, not the only, but like when the main good thing is cool new raid, it's like, okay, now I'm going to get, I'm going to do some dungeons. If new mega dungeon comes out, I'm going to do that. But it's like, yeah, if I'm just going to get curve and then it turns out there's no cool new rep to go and do, or like like truly new feeling thing, instead of just install Tomcat and handy notes and run around in circles. Like, yeah, I'm going to play another game outside of raid. Like, I'm going to acknowledge that they are some of the best encounter designers on the planet and their raids are fucking excellent, but
true.
That's one game. That's like one small little game. Where's the so
I think the thing with Final Fantasy is it's very apparent that they expect you to play the new content and then either go hang out in your estate, in your FC estate, and like just look at cat girls or whatever the heck you're going to do there. Or they expect you to go play another game. They even have crossovers with the other games.
You know what else does that?
Games.
You know what else does that is Path of Exile. I think even Chris Wilson said before, he's like, after you finish all the content, you finish your character. Yeah. I mean, it's if there's people that want to keep making new characters and do that and play the game to its fullest extent, that's great. They love that. But there's a lot of people that are seasonal players. I'm a seasonal player. Every league, pretty much every league, and if not every league, every other league, I come back and I play Path of Exile and I love it. And sometimes I have to quit my stream over it because I want to play it so much. What game are you looking forward to, Bellular, more than anything?
You know what? Shadowbringers and Endwalker. I've barely played. I barely played FF14. I'm not barely. I mean, like a few days, but time's been a bit. There's a whole bunch of things going on here, but it's just nice having that much game to be driven to just fucking plow through, to actually play like it's back in the day. For other things, I mean, it's hard. I've slipped back into playing Shogun 2 Total War. It's one of my favorite games of all time. So
2004.
No, it's like 2012, 2010, 2012.
Okay.
Shogun. Oh, dude, Shogun 2 is so good. Yeah, so I've been in my little happy corner, kind of siloed away from everything. Yeah, I mean, it's mostly that. Like, I'm mostly thinking about FF and now New World. Do you know what it is, right? Sort of thing, when you're so busy, like, working in the games industry, it's real fucking hard to get enough time to play games.
Yeah.
It must be weird, right?
Yeah.
Because, like, now you're actually
it is.
your own games, and, like, you've got to think about making your own games rather than just playing games. That must kind of suck.
No, it's like between my, like, games I really want to play for, like, that reason, because it, stuff's similar genre to us, and, man, yeah, it's really hard to find time to play games.
I know.
People will know more about why that is in first stage 1 month, and then in 4 months.
When do you think we're gonna get a look at your new game? Yeah.
Okay, so I can say that the initial plan, how to do this? We're not currently we are not self-publishing. Okay. So you can maybe put 1 and 2 together there.
All right.
So that means that we don't, people to work with, right? So initially the plan was to do stuff in and around Gamescom. So August for trailer, the whole thing. That's been pushed back a few months. Not because of our development schedule, funny enough, but because better shit. Some real let's say good time and place to you know, to do proper announcements and stuff.
Yeah, this has been an incredible episode. It's been we made up for lost time by having this be like a 3-hour episode.
Holy shit,
thanks a lot for sticking with us for this long. I really appreciate it. It's been, guys, I think, how long have we been trying to get you on the show?
4 years. Whoops.
4 years. About 4 years. Yeah, it is what it is. I mean, the DMs just didn't really line up. Listen, man, thanks a lot for coming on and doing this with us, man. Thank you so much. And guys,
that was fun.
Yeah, I mean, I know y'all probably know Bellular and everything, but if you don't, make sure to follow him on Twitter, on YouTube. Do you stream on Twitch? You just pretty much do you do all your stuff on YouTube now, don't you?
Yeah, I know we stream on YouTube.
How is it?
I don't know. Like, technically, I violated my Twitch partner agreement because I from back in the day, right, when we were both YouTubers in Warlords of Draenor, I was Twitch streaming, got partnered, but if you stream somewhere else, you violate your partner.
It's actually not, at least not with my contract. Like, I think this is a big misconception that a lot of people have. It's not a violation to stream someplace else. It's a violation to stream to both places simultaneously, which I don't think he does. I think he only streams on YouTube. The only thing that, at least in my contract, the only thing that it says is 24-hour exclusivity on my streams. So if I stream on Twitch like this right now, 24 hours of exclusivity for Twitch, and then like 24 hours from now, I can post this whole stream to YouTube if I want to. That's the only thing.
Partnership. So did I just burn that bridge? I don't know. I don't know.
Be cool. Be cool.
Yeah. Yo, delete the VOD, man. Delete the VOD. I won't tell them. It's okay.
Shit.
Anyway, man, thank you so much for coming on. I really, really do appreciate it.
I know you're welcome. It was a pleasure. That was good fun.
I've already watched the Transmog competition. It was real good. Zeppler was in it as well. I'm not going to be reacting to that. That's a much longer video, but yeah, that was really good. This was interesting. Bellular always has a lot of insight when it comes to WoW stuff. So it's always cool to hear what he thinks about it. But yeah, I'm actually going to be watching this in its entirety. And by the way, if you guys want to as well, I'm gonna link you guys the channel where they upload the entirety of Allcraft, which is actually Rich's channel. So for those of you that haven't watched this, if you're curious about watching the entirety of Allcraft, you can check it out there. I know that I will later. Not right now. I'm not going to react to like 2 hours of podcast on stream, but I did want it to see like their highlights and stuff. But yeah, it was really, really cool. It's nice to see all of that discussion around WoW so that I can kind of like stay updated on it as well.